We see it everywhere. In America, as in many places around the world, we witness the merging of two worlds. The first world includes the English-speaking peoples who have come to dominate the American population for the most part, while the second pertains to the Spanish-speaking immigrants from Latin America, who are technically from the same world in a literal sense. Today, we investigate the blurred spots where these two languages come together in American society. Literature is perhaps the most relevant medium, since people who speak English and people who speak Spanish can generally both write. We begin with a trip to the local library in a random American city to speak with someone who knows about writing in Spanish.
Right, Miss Hannah Bentley then.
Hi.
You have a story for us then?
It's a poem, actually.
Oh, I see.
It's a poem by Francisco Alarcon called En un barrio de Los Angeles. A neighborhood in Los Angeles is the alternate title.
Well, why not just call it that in the first place so your average American can read it?
It was originally written in Spanish and then translated to English later on.
Right.
Francisco Alarcon was born in Los Angeles and then moved to Mexico at an early age to get in touch with his culture. He grew up there and then moved back to Los Angeles as an adult. He experienced two contrasting lives, really.
And where was he when he published this poem?
Los Angeles.
So, America then?
That's where Los Angeles is, yes.
Then why have a Spanish title for a predominantly English-speaking market? Isn't that a bit counterproductive for an American author?
After speaking with Miss Bentley, I decided to conduct some of my own research, since she was having horrible trouble making sense. It turns out that Francisco Alarcon had written the poem entirely in Spanish from the perspective of a citizen of Los Angeles for three main reasons. First, he took into consideration that Los Angeles has a high population of Latin American people, and that the language boundaries are greatly weakened as a result. Second, Alarcon was pairing the values of his Mexican family and culture with the values of the American lifestyle that was his by birth, in order to demonstrate that no matter what language we speak, we all share the same kinds of experiences and feelings. Third, there was a slim chance that if he wrote only in Spanish, people who didn't know the language would just assume he was a literary genius and would publish him in grade school textbooks. We met with an interpreter of poetry in multiple languages, one Mrs. Casey Dowd, who hadn't ever been to Los Angeles, but with 3 guesses could likely find it on a map.
So, tell us, what sorts of messages did you take from
En un barrio de Los Angeles.
Yes, that one.
The author spent a considerable amount of time living in Guadalajara, a city in Mexico where his family lived. He wanted to get in touch with the culture of the people, so he decided to immerse himself in the social and religious elements of Mexican life until he decided to teach the people of America, his homeland by birth, everything he had learned. He wanted appreciation and harmony between the two nations, the two cultures, really.
Okay, now, if Mexico was rich in ethnic value as Alarcon makes it out to be, why is it so many people who are born there leave there the first chance they get?
It's the government, really. The place is like hell on earth for a lot of them.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Granted, that's not the message that Alarcon meant to convey, because there's a downside to living in any place, no matter what the language and values.
And what's the downside to living in the United States, in your opinion?
Where did you say this was being aired again?
They say home is where the heart is, and for author Francisco Alarcon, his heart is cut in half. Latin American immigrants also leave behind figurative pieces of their hearts in their home countries, but bring with them the memories and values and experiences from those lands to America. This poem has greater meaning in light of immigration, particularly from Mexico and Los Angeles, as Spanish speakers continue to form more and more of our American population. Therefore, even though we can't necessarily understand what they write or have to say in their airport settings, we can still show some appreciation for the connections they are forming between their cultural and linguistic world and ours. We do, after all, feel the same in all languages, and, like it or not, our lifestyles, values, beliefs, and everyday experiences have more in common than we often think they do. Perhaps Francisco Alarcon was heading in the proper direction. Certainly his poem, when paired with an English translation as we will hear next, crosses borders, and proves that, in the end, Mexicans are people like us.
En un barrio de Los Angeles.
in a
El
neighborhood in Los
español
Angeles.
lo aprendí de mi abuela. Mijito, no llores, me decía. En las mañanas,
I
cuando
learned
salían
Spanish
mis
from my
padres
grandma.
a trabajar
Mijito,
en
don't
las
cry, she'd tell
cañerías
me
de
on the
pescado,
mornings my parents would
mi
leave
abuela platicaba
to
con
work
las
at the fish
sillas,
canneries.
les cantaba
My grandma would
canciones
chat with the
antiguas,
chairs,
les
sing them
bailaba
old songs,
valses en la
dance
cocina.
waltzes with them in the kitchen. When she'd say Niño
Cuando
Barrigón,
decía
she'd
niño,
laugh. With my
barrigón,
grandma,
se reía.
I learned to count
Con mi
clouds,
abuela
to point out
aprendí
in
a
flower
contar
pots,
nubes,
leaves.
a reconocer
My
en
grandma
las
wore moons
macetas
on her
la hierba
dress,
buena.
Mexico's
Mi
mountains,
abuela llevaba
deserts, ocean
lunas
in
en el
her eyes.
vestido. La
I'd see them.
montaña,
In
el
her braids, I'd
desierto,
touch them. In
el
her
mar de
voice,
México
smell them.
en sus ojos.
One day, I was
Yo
told
las
she
vi
went far away.
en sus
But still,
tranzas.
I feel her
Yo
with
los
me,
tocaba con su
whispering in my
voz,
ear,
yo los
Mijito.
olía. Un día me dijeron, se fue muy lejos, pero yo aún la siento conmigo, diciéndome, quedito al oído, mijito.